Hello. Hello.
Session 1. The essay, not the album. Yeah, that's right. I just did a clickbait on you. We know this is good. We know what it means. If you don't, go cyberbully Matty Healy and then pirate the album or something. But maybe, just maybe, if you're good, I'll talk about it a little bit later. Would you like that? The Context of the Digital, A Brief Inquiry into Online Relationships, is an essay that is bad. Throughout the piece, author Jean McHugh praises the aspects of the internet I find to be the worst bits. But there are reasons for that. McHugh is significantly older than me, on the other side of the line we use to designate the digital natives. He views the internet as a space for opportunity, while I often find it to be one of limitation. In his essay, he references cyberspace as a tool, but for me, it's primarily been a place. I was maybe barely 4 the first time I remember using a computer. My dad and I were sitting in his home office. He was paying the bills, or at least moving money around to keep bill collectors happy, and I was tapping away on the family laptop, an ancient, failing MacBook. I kept asking my dad how to spell certain letters, like Y or V, and my dad would just say, it's just the letter, and I'd type it, leaving a space between each symbol. Then I got to the point where I needed to spell W, which I was just so sure would break the letter rule Dad was preaching, and I asked him, how do you spell W? And he said, W, and of course that didn't help, so I said, okay, but like, how do you spell it? And he walked over and tapped on a key on my workstation that looked like 2 connected V's. I frowned. I was happy to have an answer, deeply transfixed by the magic on the screen, but it seemed wrong for a letter with so much gravitas to take up so little space. A possibility died in that moment. W. After this moment, I still went outside and played pretend. I created worlds, new dreams and futures, made new friends, but as I grew up, more and more possibilities continued to die. When I was 4, I wanted to be a clown when I grew up, but I didn't like makeup. At 5, I thought being a scientist would be fun, but then I learned more about the restrictions of the scientific method. Then there was cook for a little while, but that died within the first 3 months of my first job in a kitchen. Lastly, most recently, there's been writer, kind of, mostly because I liked reading a lot and people said the things I wrote were good, and so I went and studied that in college, and that's my brief memoir of the natural historical limitations of possibility I faced while growing up. It's natural. The possibility is dependent on dreams and reflections, even if they weren't defined like that. I'm not blaming the internet for that. But my relationship to possibility was corrupted by the time I turned 10. I played video games, of course, at my grandma's house for years before on the old computer, but by 11, my sister and I both bought iPod Touches after a summer of helping Dad reshingle the house. With that iPod, my relationship to the internet began shifting from being a toy into being a place. And I liked spending time in that cyberspace. I liked it for a long time, up until I started to notice what I was giving up in reverence to the digital. I was reading less. Silence became more uncomfortable. Patience and boredom became less manageable. Stopping became unimaginable. With my iPod Touch, I had found a key to a castle, but I never thought about the possibility of leaving it.
When you're a young kid, you have all of this potential. You have potential to be anything, but it's quite low resolution. And as you grow up, that narrows and you become a thing. And then once you're that thing, you know, that's who you are.
Well, you took me on quite the journey there, but
Jean McHugh dances with the court in this castle. He views the internet as a logical, progressive evolution of human connection. Instead of meeting others, we adopt the position of users before connecting, matching, etc. with other users. As McHugh recognizes, we progressively shift the ways we type to perform a new sort of digital intimacy. Intimacy removed from the body and removed from the present. He views this new intimacy as just as valid as the relationships we cultivate in reality. I think he's wrong. I feel it in my bones. I feel it in my blood. I feel it in misunderstandings and relationships now limited by distance and time. I do not feel closer to the ones I keep in contact with thanks to the internet. We trade off texts like bandages between visits, feel leagues closer after letters or phone calls than when we pass DMs or memes between our avatars. No matter what, there is a third party between our connections. Meta or Verizon, Match Group for dating apps. Very creative. Okay, so do you know about Match Group? If you've used a dating app in America, it's fairly likely you have interacted with MG in some capacity, perhaps even given them money. The company owns and operates Match.com, of course, but also Tinder, Hinge, OkCupid, Plenty of Fish, and like 6 other apps I've never heard of. Bumble is indeed separate, so we don't really care. They use AI, though. I'm not a big fan. Match Group's mission statement is as follows. Our mission is to spark meaningful connections for every single person worldwide. To read between the lines, Match Group has made and makes money by building and reinforcing third-party services to meet others. Online relationships are not apolitical. They are often profit-motivated or otherwise tangentially remove others from their immediate communities, which is a big statement, but Ethan Murakami's dating apps force me to attempt self-love, I think proves it. Maybe. At the start of his essay, Murakami briefly describes his phone. His dating apps were kept in a folder labeled Idiot, 2 swipes away from the home screen. Discretion was paramount, Murakami says. First, because the use of these apps represent a sort of failure in your ability to successfully meet someone away from keyboard or AFK, and second, because the continuous use of the apps represent another sort of failure of you having yet to connect with someone digitally. You still patiently waiting for the ones who will allow you to delete your account. Dating apps represent constant failure and continual distance from your community. Interfacing through the internet, Murakami notes, and my generation knows, is nearly impossible to do on an intimate, authentic, sincere level. In Murakami's own words, if we were to go back a few hundred years ago, some of us, me, would never have been able to flirt with guys in Toronto while living in Hawaii. We would all be in our own communities, our social circles much smaller, and our dating prospects much, much lower. God forbid that we'd actually have to attempt conversation with the handsome mustachioed stranger at the bar. Nature never intended for us to be able to communicate and to interface with the 28 million people that use Hinge or the 75 million that are on Tinder. The normalization of this level of access, as well as the sense of entitlement to other people that we've been provided through these platforms, has consumed us all in an attention economy. When we use the internet to cultivate new relationships, we accept a false premise. It is essentially impossible to find community and care and love and intimacy where one currently resides without, any tools. It is impossible to successfully cultivate romantic connections AFK, and if it is possible, there is a very low success rate. The internet makes it easier. Each avatar is seen, and you are likely to get at least a little bit of attention. After a series of nightmare dates and text interactions and digital ghosts who only ever remain code, you may begin to cultivate a real AFK relationship. This work, though, this experience, which includes not only the physical presence of bodies, but also the intimacy of silence, stutters, interruptions, and being, only works when we are present in the same space at the same time. The temporal element is absolutely vital, even if a relationship only ever stays online. My friend's husband plays video games with his Xbox friends as they share time. They talk through headsets. They paint pictures of their lives and experiences. They cut out this time, despite time zones across the planet, because they find it valuable. They react and respond in the moment. They are a part of each other. They find the group valuable and worth keeping year after year after year. Because in this case, the internet supplements and adds to my friend's husband's social and communal life. For these groups, the digital offers presence. This is rare. I will concede quite easily not all digital relationships need temporal and physical presence, but I also believe relationships grow more successfully when there is that shared time. Harry and Sally fall in love over phone calls and meet cutes. We Live in Time is centered on the spaces Alma and Tobias share together. McHugh's essay is trying to convince the reader that there is intimacy which is not reliant on the present, on the presence, but solely reaction. This is stupid. He's also wrong, and he also likes using AI, so I think he's a loser too. Gene McHugh's exploration of online relationships, which mostly centers on mildly interesting aesthetic analyses of artworks and movies that he likes, begins with New York City mayoral candidate Anthony D. Weiner.
Please welcome Anthony Weiner, everyone.
Who was shockingly caught in a second sex scandal that was then covered by the New York Times in 2013.
Gigi?
In her article, Susan Jacoby, at the height of a 2010s feminist wave, essentially calls Weiner a bit of a cuck, like every single other New Yorker. Weiner's scandal? He cheated on his wife in an online relationship. A relationship, Jacoby argues, where the woman should have known better. This is the real crime in Jacoby's piece. It's committed by both Weiner and his illicit affair partner, Sydney Leathers. And that crime Jacoby assigns isn't based on doing anything illegal or sinful or harmful.
Western civilization perhaps tripped over your penis. It could have been the penis that changed history the most.
It's that they were cringe. Why is he called a pervert? Well, Sydney Leathers' statement that their internet contact progressed to phone sex twice a week, a fantasy thing for both of us, she told one tabloid TV show, is greeted with neutral, if not exactly respectful attention. Some fantasy. Whatever women or men are getting out of sex via Twitter or YouTube, it is not recognition of their specialness as individuals. I could call myself Susanna Reckless and post pictures of my much younger self online tomorrow, but the resulting encounters would have nothing to do with the real me. It all recalls the classic New Yorker cartoon with the caption, "On the internet, nobody knows you're a dog." After briefly going over the facts, Jacoby sort of shifts into an of the times feminist tightroping of the issue of online pornography and sex work. I won't blame or criticize her for having lukewarm takes here with my own analysis. That's not why I'm diving into this story. But I do think Jacoby's constant retreat to a broad and vague liberal feminist value does undercut the best parts of her piece. The morality of virtual sex, as long as no one is cheating on a real partner, is not what bothers me. What's truly troubling about the whole business is that it resembles the substitution of texting for extended face-to-face time with friends. Virtual sex is to sex as virtual food is to food. You can't taste, touch, or smell it, and you don't have to do any preparation or work. Sex with strangers online amounts to a diminution, close to an absolute negation of the context that gives human interaction genuine content. Erotic play without context becomes just another form of one-on-one pornography. The problem Jacoby explores in this paragraph is no longer anti-feminism or cringe politics, but instead that something here is deeply wrong. We quickly accept texting and other forms of digital connection and social stimulation. There is an instantaneous nature in our connections. Our conversations were made in the cloud like stone tablets. The unreal becomes real, and something is gained by the folks trying to convince you this is a good thing. The cloud can stretch forever, and you only need 2 or 3 cubic feet to comfortably stay here. There is no value in the instrumental. It's better just to arrive at the end. Now, I don't know the intricacies of Weiner's marriage. In-person relationships are hard and take time and effort to continue their cultivation and growth. But I do know his wife at the time, Huma Abedin, was hurt by this online relationship, this affair. I know the pair separated, divorced, and entered into a custody battle a few years later after a new sexting scandal. I also know that Huma Abedin looks like someone I'd offer an open invitation to in regards to using me as a doormat. I don't want to be mean, so I can neither confirm nor deny feeling similarly towards Leathers. And I also pinky promise the reason I'm not showing you any pictures of her is because in 2013, she was the same age as I am now. It would feel weird to do that. Besides, I'm a new man. I offer empathy and grace to everyone I write about. As the story of Weiner's affair grew, the mythology growing denser, more consideration was given to Abedin and the reasons she had for remaining in their marriage. Despite being married to Abedin, who, may I remind you, looked like this then and this now, Weiner became embroiled in 3 sexting scandals during the time of their marriage. The first one led to his voluntary resignation from Congress. In 2013, here it was again.
Gigi?
And everyone just wanted to know why. Shortly after the second scandal, but before Jacoby's opinion piece to the New York Times, Abedin herself said a few words for New York Magazine, and then penned an essay for Harper's Bazaar, a part of which was shared by Harper's in mid-July. The only part that they didn't share are, this is in the script, but I'm annoyed because I spent money on this. There's 2 paragraphs here. There's 2, maybe 3 paragraphs here at the end of the thing that they cut out and you can't find it anywhere. I should put this on the Internet Archive. That's important, right? Is anybody gonna talk about Anthony D. Weiner's sex scandal on the internet ever again?
Hello.
In a notable, this is 2 hours. Maybe there'll be a TikTok about it. These pieces I've read about Abedin tend to emphasize a mystical quality about her. Emily Greenhouse for The New Yorker compares her to Eleanor Roosevelt and Hillary Clinton. In Mark Jacobson's piece for New York Magazine, the first thing he does is acknowledge her beauty and presence when first meeting her. Well, seeing her in a coffee shop while interviewing her then husband. The harsh, cheap buck lighting in the coffee shop couldn't lay a glove on her. By the time she sat down, the harmony of angels had vanquished the tinny background music from every corporate space on the planet. Of course, you'd seen pictures before, but you'd also seen pictures of the Taj Mahal. It didn't quite come up to actually being there. Look, Abedin, I know you and your partner have enough money to pay for anyone to be your doormat, but I will do it for free.
Gigi?
The general trend, the general truth every writer was scraping at was uncovering the couple's political performance and discovering some essential truth in their relationship. Huma's husband was not a stranger to doing terrible things. Anthony's wife displayed incredible resilience just by not putting him on full blast like he deserved over and over and over again. The writers knew there was a strain, and they were all desperate to guess what was behind the curtain by placing it there and then pulling it back really fast in hopes of finding the actors in the middle of a quick change or a jewel puff. But even when improvising, the couple still stuck to a narrative. Things were hard then, but they were focused on getting through it. Weiner's mayoral run is important and good. Abedin describes her husband in her own words as a smart, caring, and dedicated person. And while he's the same public servant who wants what's best for the people he represents, he is now something else, a better man. New Yorkers will have to decide themselves whether or not to give him a second chance.
So really what I want to say is, I love him, I have forgiven him, I believe in him, and as we have said from the beginning, we are moving forward.
There's honesty here. There's performance here. Just like in Jacobson's writing. Huma? Hey, honey, Huma? Was I happy before I started running for mayor? There was no answer. Huma was in another room, out of earshot. Weiner repeated the question. Huma, honey? When Huma came back into the living room, she said, "Oh God, yes. You are happy. Would you say I'm less happy now that I'm running for mayor? You know, much less happy or slightly less happy?" "What do you want me to say, honey?" Huma asked. "That you're happier or not happier?" "I don't want you to say anything. I just want your honest opinion." "Okay," Huma said. "I would say, on the whole, you are slightly less happy since you started running for mayor." "Thank you, Huma," Weiner declared. This interaction feels like a new conversation. Abedin can't get a read. Weiner doesn't quite seem to know what he's asking for. They fumble through it. They do something right, pass information back and forth, carry on their family and relationship for a while longer. It would be years before Abedin worked on Clinton's 2016 campaign, years before she would release her divorce statement. After long and painful consideration and work on my marriage, I have made the decision to separate from my husband. Anthony and I remain devoted to doing what is best for our son, who is the light of our life. During this difficult time, I ask for respect for our privacy. In 2013, much like 2014, when Gene wrote his little criticism, there was a hope for positive change and connection within Abedin's relationship. If nothing else, this is palpable. In turn, Jacobson and Greenhouse and Jacoby and all the others penned their connections and thoughts about the marriage and the mayoral run, interrogated this family's hope, and then shared their analyses with their readers. Jacoby did get dragged a bit after her opinion was published. And I'm not talking about from Gene and his little essay either. The day after its publication, the Times ran 4 responses. All of them, of course, criticizing. None of these responses, I'm sure, got quite the same reach as the original opinion, but each author attempts to have a conversation with Jacoby in her preferred medium, which I can't help but to appreciate. My favorite is from this guy named Phil from Scottsdale. A man who, over a decade ago, managed to summarize so many of my thoughts on Gene's work and in this essay in less than 100 words. Susan Jacoby writes that virtual sex is to sex as virtual food is to food. That is not totally true. Virtual sex can provide a level of satisfaction, while a picture of pizza doesn't make you any less hungry. The comparable analogy is what 1,000 Facebook friends are to real friends, the ones who will babysit on 10 minutes notice or go shopping for you when you are home with a broken leg. Or what $1,000 in Monopoly money is to having that same amount in a savings account, or as tweeting is to writing, or whatever Gene McHugh does is to writing. Just kidding. That last bit was me. I hate McHugh so much. I'm a new man. I offer empathy and grace to everyone I write about. So, yeah, I wrote that. Sorry.
So, Matty Healy from the 1975.
Yes, familiar.
Was in my dream, and he was murdering people.
The rest of McHugh's essay continues to be just as miserable as the start. After sharpening his knives on Jacoby's piece, he loses steam, meanders around to discuss other works of art that speak to him. His inquiry loses purpose, just circles around when not attacking. Gene highlights ease more than quality, concludes the internet is a sexual technology that is sure to remain sexual. We agree there is weight here. McHugh's corresponding hope is that as the idea of forming bonds online through screens becomes more and more naturalized, as if they've always already been part of the fundamental toolbox of life, realistic social and ethical norms, along with culture that analyzes and or mythologizes these experiences, can be established to guide someone through the complexities of communicating intimately online and understanding what is ethical and what is not. McHugh and we can build some sort of solidarity here, but not much. Our technologies are not natural. They are profitable in an economic system which places profit above all else. But we do need an ethics for our relationships to and within the online. Ethics beyond parasociality bad or no phone at the dinner table. Ethics which understand what we are offering to the digital and what it is taking in return. So thank God that in 2018, the 1975 made OK Computer, but again, this time with even more heroin. There's a deep temptation to speak about the conflicting politics and persona of British musician Matty Healy when speaking of his album, A Brief Inquiry into Online Relationships.
He was murdering people.
It is a temptation I would like to avoid for as long as possible. I don't want to bog you down with every intimate detail of what the problematic person has done to make him problematic. But Healy's neurosis, which colors all of his work, deepens a particular palette used on A Brief Inquiry. The opening track offers an intimate description of what I will call a real relationship. I'm not against all digital relationships. I just see them as basically an instrumental step to natural relationships. But we also got a capitalism in our society. We live here, so I, like basically everyone, am not the biggest fan of the apps. Anyways, the start of the track offers a sense of play and discovery. Matty is heard playing around on a piano, searching for the right notes with the lyrics that compose every opening track on every album before A Brief Inquiry, and none of the openers after. Go down, soft sound. He then lays out his scene through a striking chorus effect, the digital multiplying the natural, pulling into tension the experiences of sexuality our narrator is describing. Like the digital intimacy McHugh experiences and explores, Healy is reproducing a sexual scene through his lyrics, asking the audience to fill in the pieces that are missing on their own. Unlike the previous iterations of the song, though, Healy's presence is the absolute most important. The 1975 from the 1975 had this wonderful wide string section. The 1975 from I Like It When You Sleep For You Are So Beautiful Yet So Unaware of It has a whole ass chorus. The 1975 from A Brief Inquiry is mostly just a piano and Healy's voice layered with autotune. It has more silence. It feels the most empty and alone. There is, however, a sense of agency dependent on the natural within Healy's lyrics, aided now by this production. While McHugh's sexuality remains comfortable within the digital space, Healy explores a want beyond it. He sings the same line, his fantasy exactly the same as when the band was first breaking into the Tumblr mainstream. Step into your skin, I'd rather jump into your bones. Taking up your mouth so you'll breathe through your nose. Healy is not exploring a successful encounter played out digitally. He is describing a desire. The rest of the album continues on to explore what is important and what is not. The songs rush by jumping between genres, creating a listening experience akin to scrolling. It is an album for the listener to get lost in, leaving the viewer positioned frozen in a digital experience. Notable standout Love If We Made It depicts these themes perfectly. Composed of a series of quotes and things happening across the world, Healy envelops the listener in a sense of unreality composed by the real. His only wish? To make it. A cry which begins as this dream for success, but ends in a desperate plea for survival. I'd love it if we made it. Tell me something I don't know. The genius of A Brief Inquiry lies in the fact that it doesn't really provide anything new. After bracing the initial break speed listens, the record continues to solidify in its argument for the natural. Healy breaks down the barriers between himself and his narrator avatar, slicing into these specific theses advocating for experience. He proclaims sincerity is scary and explores complicated but ultimately worthwhile obligations to his community in I Always Want to Die Sometimes. If A Brief Inquiry has a purpose, it is screaming how worthwhile and important natural experience is until our narrator begins to actually believe it. The 1975 followed up this album with the companion work, Notes on a Conditional Form, which furthers this journey. It explicitly begins with a plea for the natural world. Greta Thunberg offers us a new intro detailing our extinction. She is followed with the nihilistic People, where Healy offers another desperate cry. Wake up, wake up, wake up. We are appalling and we need to stop just watching shit in bed. And I know it sounds boring and we like things that are funny, but we need to get this in our fucking heads. The economy is a goner. Republic's a banana. Ignore it if you wanna. Fuck it, I'm just gonna get girls, food, gear. I don't like going outside, so pay me everything. His solution to all of this nihilism, our irony, our chaos, our digital, is to stop fucking with Remember the future, and remember it can be good. Act accordingly. The way to accomplish this goal, of course, is community. In the closer guys, Healy reflects on how much his bandmates and friends mean to him. They become the clarity in everything. Healy misses the guys, and in his reflection, feels longing. While McHugh offers the internet as the solution for this longing, Healy sits with it. He realizes at the end of the song, "You guys are the best thing that ever happened to me." And then, "You guys are the best thing that ever happened." This song, released in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic and lockdowns, finds a clarity within desire, within longing. People are important. Hanging out, experiencing things with others is important. If a brief inquiry asks us to see the internet as it is despite the influence of people, Notes on a Conditional Form begs us to see the inverse. People despite the influence of the internet. Even as I find Notes to be, as a whole, bloated and under-edited, I appreciate the qualities and purpose the band imbued into it. Each piece offers a continual sense of value as time passes. I retreat to both albums at times, feel renewed in my engagement with them. I seek the work out, I carry it with me. I imbue it with meaning. So yes, I deeply respect Healy as an artist, and yes, I do also get deeply frustrated when Healy goes on a podcast.
Because people told me not to come on this, and I was like, no, it's a real...
No, it's a real thing.
It's a real thing.
If the 1975 frontman Matty Healy is known for anything, he is known for being decisive, which is very rarely the best thing. He's gotten flack for imperfect protests in the 2010s, routinely kissing fans, and more recently, a slew of racist and misogynistic statements in podcasts and other online mediums, along with an incorporation of the Nazi salute in shows from the early 2020s. If, like Ye, any of these disgusting views ended up in their music, it would be easy to reject the 1975 with one foul swoop. But it doesn't. Not really. The band, which made themselves through the internet by branding themselves with the internet, seems to be threatening to unravel themselves every other month through the same medium. They don't succeed, of course. Their fan base is dedicated. Healy's actions mostly forgivable and forgettable among those who most interact with the band's work. It also certainly helps that Healy, well-behaved, is easier to believe and attach to the persona he keeps for his craft.
There was this maybe concept that because what I was doing was spiky, I was maybe being a bit thoughtless.
Healy's most recent interviews, alongside with the band's most recent album, are all inching further from the internet as a subject. I know he plans on returning to the web for a future album, but I wouldn't be surprised if the medium had started to bore him, run its course. Instead of repeating himself, Healy has moved on to the next thing, the new relevance. He's in his 30s. He's written the best he can about the internet as an impossibly broad subject in the current moment. Of course, I don't know him, but there's a sense and maybe a hope that Healy's onlineness is coming to a close. I doubt it, though. As part of my research, I listened to 9 hours of interviews and podcasts where he was mostly eloquent, but very receptive to the conversations his hosts wanted to have. In the worst and most infamous interview with the Friedland show, Healy shows himself to be just essentially a loser.
Okay, so BuzzFeed posted an article today that says Taylor Swift has been branded another complicit white woman after Matty Healy admitted to masturbating to hardcore pornography that degrades and humiliates black women just 3 months ago.
Gigi?
And that was said on a different program. That's on, it's not, well, it was this program.
Yes, we all know the Ice Spice comments, but Healy also details DMing her and Doja Cat to no response before the interview. He talks about watching porn on a TV immediately after hanging out with friends before a tour.
That is weird.
He speaks like he's trying to keep sitting at the cool kids table. Speaks like he doesn't know he's the cool kid, which is really humbling and beautiful in his GQ interview or his Doomscroll appearance, but just terrible with Adam Friedland. Matty's conversation was racist, sexist, and homophobic. He became a part of a bit about Ice Spice's race, Friedland and company saying that she looked Asian and running along with that with accents and caricatures to mark. They talk about Healy watching hardcore porn instantly after hanging out on his TV, as mentioned before, getting walked in on by a young woman who had forgotten her phone or keys, not exposed, but not composed either. Television still on. Hearing this made me sad. I pitied him more than anything. The same sort of minimal and tightly contained pity I hold for Weiner. This story, this podcast, doesn't make Healy seem cool or relatable. It just paints him as a loser. This is the tension, the dialectic that exists within Healy's public persona. He is no doubt a visionary. Even when his music and ideas are reductive, there's still a distinct edge, a style that is funny and mean and smart and distinctly 1975. He's not the musician to save Mark Fisher.
We lost Fisher tragically in 2017 in the only way I think he could have gone. I would have been really interested to see what he thought about my band.
I'm sure Fisher would hate Healy's music and adoption of postmodern critique, not for mass understanding, but mass consumption. But a non-zero part of his fan base do understand. We understand him. I remember first listening to Love It If We Made It, going back and falling in love with Give Yourself a Try. I bought Two Time after hearing it enough times on the internet via iTunes, back when people still sometimes did that. I bought an iTunes song in 2019 for Matty Healy. I love this album. I deeply respect Healy's craft and believe him when he refers to himself as a visionary. But he's more than that. He's also a person. He fucks up. Bad. He does interviews about it. I asked him about the podcast. He'd been doing so much promo, he told me, that he wanted to do something that felt more like simply talking with his friends. But of course, he had done this all in public, on mic. Had he baited his fans on purpose? A bit, he said, but it doesn't actually matter. Nobody is sitting there at night, slumped over at their computer, and their boyfriend comes over and goes, "What's wrong, darling?" And they go, "It's just this thing with Matty Healy." That doesn't happen. Maybe it does, I said. If it does, he said, you're either deluded or you are, a liar. You're either lying that you are hurt or you're a bit mental for being hurt. It's just people going, "Oh, there's a bad thing over there. Let me get as close to it as possible so you can see how good I am." And I kind of want them to do that because they're demonstrating something so base level. Healy here has defined the response to his actions and statements as a sort of moral outrage porn. As defined by C.T. Ngyuen and Bekka Williams, generalized porn is an instrumental object which is then used to create a reaction freed from consequence or effort. Some examples the authors use is food porn or closet porn. Phil from Scottsdale identifies the same thing. There is a representation with some value, but it honestly doesn't do much. It's easy to make a Facebook friend. It's easy to dream or to imagine. You don't need to do much in order to grow your moral standing when engaging with moral outrage porn. You write or like a post, you scroll on. Hopefully people see you did this. See you know good. See you are good. You have no problematic faves. You are doing the work of calling out, holding people accountable, all from your phone. It doesn't matter that your action won't change anything. Healy said something bad, and now he must do better. Or else, I don't know, you'll stay harmed? You'll grow more righteous? Hurt here becomes an act of choice. Healy respects his fans enough to give them music and shows which intrigues and challenges them. Challenges us. But he does not see anything owed during his constant public appearances. Still performing, but without a stage. He did apologize to Ice Spice, though, in public and in person. A quote from an Ice Spice interview with Variety. When I had heard that little podcast or whatever, I was so confused. Because I heard chubby Chinese lady or some shit like that, and I'm like, huh? What does that even mean? First of all, I'm thick. What do you mean by Chinese? What? But then they apologized or whatever, and the whole time I didn't really care. But that's funny because I saw him at the Jean-Paul Gaultier party a couple of days ago, and he was like, hey, you okay? And I'm like, of course. He apologized to me a bunch of times. We're good. Healy apologizes a lot. Gets pegged over and over and over again as a problematic fave. In turn, our support or disapproval of the 1975 can be read as some insight into our character. When I say I respect Healy as an artist, and I like the 1975, people then work to extrapolate that information. In Matty's own words, if the culture's gonna demand that I'm famous, I'm gonna really make you work for it. He does, and he will. Since at least 2019, he's been saying his identity is separate from his avatars. Healy as a person becomes a bit difficult to talk about. Healy as an artist even more so. But Healy as a brand? Within the 1975 mythology, instead of signing or traditionally self-releasing, the band created the record label Dirty Hit with the aid of their manager. Some of their assignees include B.Doobie, Bleachers, Kelly Lee Owens, model actress, The Japanese House, Saya Gray, Wallace, Wolf Alice, and of course, the wonderful Rina Sawayama. Now let me be as clear as I can be on one thing. I believe Rina Sawayama, and I want her to be able to continue her music career if that's what she wants. It makes sense to me that the man she called out, the man who creatively runs their record label, Healy's record label, would have the power and ability to keep Rina from creating. Like, seriously. Free Sawayama.
That's my opinion!
Unlike Ice Spice, Sawayama has claimed and reiterated harm perpetuated by the record label Healy helped create and now maintains. After speaking out against Healy's display of racism with what I think is a pretty fine response, Sawayama has... Well, here's her own words from March of last year. Since last year, I felt intense racist misogyny in a way that I've never felt before. In public and private, I feel as though I've been repeatedly gaslit, disrespected, ignored, even cyberbullied for calling out blatant racist and sexist behavior. It's horrifying seeing how these forts around men get built overnight and the techniques used to try to discredit and confuse the narrative. It's been wild to see men and women around me turn. Okay, cool. So that's kind of vague and not too incriminating maybe, but the artist shared a statement with her followers on Instagram the next day, which included the following statement again. I've been lucky to have found ways to keep my business afloat and support myself as well as my team. But when it comes to new music, I can't release another album under my current conditions. Rina's been struggling. It seems like her 3-album deal is part of the reason. Honestly, it's kind of shocking to me that there isn't any other artist who has gone through the same situation of feeling stuck in a label with one record left in her contract and also just really hates Matty Healy, who would also be willing to help. Anyways, that's the Rina situation at the moment. She's not making music. She has made some movies. The most recent time I've seen Healy reference Sawayama was positively back in August of 2023.
So owning our own label and since then we've done the Japanese House, Wolf Alice, like B.Doobie, Rina Sawayama, like we've become like a proper label, you know?
Yeah.
I also believe Rina when she says she can't release another album. This is the tension for fans of Matty Healy. He has made mistakes as a person, and he can only speak as his character. It doesn't matter that he respects Aoyama's art. There is no public support for her as a person. There are things more important than art, like people. You said that.
There's stuff that like is more important than art. Like people.
What are you doing? What is behind that curtain? This whole thing, it comes from something real, he said. I'm always sort of... He mimed shadowboxing, nervously pumping himself up. And this is all just a mental thing to be doing. I think there's something to say about how often we are in the public eye. This is not an excuse for any of Healy's words or actions, but even as we compartmentalize between avatars and ourselves, from structured, explicit performance and the comfort we relax into with friends and loved ones, we are not made of boxes. Our flesh and blood is fluid, leaks from one organ to the next. I can't say none of what I've seen is Matty Healy, and I can't say any of what I've seen is Matty Healy. I don't know who he is from his work, or from his writing, or from his interviews. I could pretend for you. I have pretended for you. I've told you about him, his work, his controversies. But do you feel like you know Matty Healy any better? What I do know is that I've spent the better part of 15 hours over the past couple of days completely immersing myself in Healy, which is quite easy to do via the internet. And through this activity, I feel almost further away from him. I wonder if his music would be better without the internet. I wonder if he would still exist without the internet. The 1975 was and is first and foremost an internet band. They were the first musical act to be followed, essentially verified by Instagram. They interfaced with fans through vague visuals on Tumblr. They made internet albums, keep making internet albums. Healy, in turn, although not totally by and of the internet, is a product of viewing and performance and surveillance. His family is full of working performers. His parents lived in tabloids. Healy's phone was bugged when he was my age. And when he found out, slowly growing his band status, he started using heroin. So much of his life has revolved around performance and attention, finding some way to navigate this attention, this scrutiny. This does not excuse any of Healy's actions for me, especially anything which may have impacted Rena, but to put them into context. When, no matter what you do, a group of people will attack you online for not living up to their expectations, you start parsing away a lot of the criticism you receive. You start searching for the truth within your immediate community, those who know you best, or those who work with you and for you. When you become criticized for your art, intentionally transgressive and difficult and decisive, and then you start making a performance and art form from your interviews or of your interviews, it's easier to completely devoid yourself from the peace and save your pride from the oncoming scrutiny. They just don't get it. I was playing a bit. When you're a man like Healy, when you feel really terrible and deep and intimate harm, it becomes so much easier to just say it doesn't fucking count. It's an explanation, not an excuse. I think Healy likes to be challenging and off-putting and mean. But more than that, I think he likes to be heard weaving and screaming his own story. If you make things online, do things online, there's an inherent reason for it. We all know it.
Of course you get like titillated by the absence of a domestic reality.
We want to be seen. So of course, in Healy's New Yorker piece, Jack Antonoff knows it too. That's the facade of it. Can beg so many questions, but the heart of it is still so obvious that it's this deep sincerity and a longing to be loved, to love, for love. Researching, writing this, I felt a bit scared. The Healy I watched and listened to reminds me a lot of myself. This feeling I sort of stumbled into. This man who's publicly characterized as being a mess and a racist and misogynist, the man I said acted like a loser, the problematic fave reminds me of myself. I'm a writer too. I write a lot of things that are contrarian and transgressive. I stain my writing with myself in hopes that people will still like it. I hope this means people will like me. The truth is, when I go home, this is not the shit I'm dealing with. I'm not dealing with the crisis of masculinity. I'm dealing with how my mom's feeling, what Ross is going through. I'm trying to be in service to people. He was no longer interested in the project of being publicly correct. I've done my decade of trying to be that, he said. I'm more interested in actually being wrong and people seeing that and knowing what's right because of it. I enveloped myself in Healy's music and controversies and conversations, most to all of which exists online, exists in the public eye. And despite everything I know about his actions and his thoughts, I'm still back in the same place I was when I first heard about Healy back in the mid-2010s. Who the fuck is this guy? I know he's a liar.
I never fucked in a car, I was lying.
I feel it in my bones that he's sincere when he speaks about the internet and connection. But I have these artifacts that clash against this ideal. I have this relationship with Sawayama where I keep on trying to uncover any detail which exonerates Healy, but I can't find anything. Rena has said she can't make music. She hasn't made music. I won't make statements of fact about their relationship, but when I think about Healy, and then I think about Sawayama, I don't feel good. Ice Spice conversation would have meant nothing if it weren't posted. Actions against Rena have more weight than clapbacks. Words are nothing. Action is the thing. Presence is the thing. This is where things still stand at the time of writing. I want to know more about Healy, and with the internet, I feel like I have access to at least some form of him. I've watched and read his interviews, listened to his music, and constructed this effigy of someone I have no connection to. I'm trying to give you fact, trying to offer myself fact, but I don't know Matty Healy. I know what he presents to writers and the rest of the public, but it's clear I am not certain. The worst sin, the crux of Gene McHugh's essay in my eyes, is that he speaks with certainty instead of clarity. This certainty reveals no evidence of struggle or consideration. His conclusions are because they must be. There are no other arguable options. We are progressing to a digital age, and that is good. The rest will fall in line with time. In his words, we are only getting closer to perfection, and it is through the digital. But the thing that brought Weiner some aspect of pleasure also brought along pain. The thing that made Healy a star is fickle, and documents all the reasons why he shouldn't be one. We gain something through their controversies and failures, gain some sort of cred or identity among all those we do not know for saying the right things, keeping the right opinions. I'm gaining it right now. Have you caught on to what I'm doing yet? Vulnerability lends authenticity to my voice and fills in for where I do not have the more formal backing of an MFA, of the recognition of an award, or the prestige of an 8-way auction publishing deal. I have an English degree, yet when faced with the task of writing, I am almost adrift. I rely on autobiographical detail. I masticate my life, spit it out, and decorate it on the page. No one can dispute my experience, even if they might rail against the way I communicate that experience, and this becomes my first line of defense. This actually happened to me. Can fight any accusation of the rough and amateur way I use the tools. What is the line between being vulnerable and prostrating yourself to a system that won't recognize you. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to like it and subscribe. Also, comment, go outside. I'll see you in the next video, and you'll stay here. Bye!
He goes, I don't know about the rest of you guys, but this guy looks to me like he broke into a bakery and ate all the pies. You're so far out of your league, I want to reply and be like, I'll kill you with a gun. Ate all the pies? Like an 18th century limerick? I will kill you to death with a gun. If you're in the sandbox, bitch, I'm at the gun store.
Pity me not because the light of day at end of day no longer walks the sky. Pity me not for beauty passed away from field and thicket as the year goes by. Pity me not the waning of the moon, nor that the ebbing tide goes up to sea, nor that a man's desire is hushed so soon, and you no longer look with love on me. This I have known always. Love is no more than the wide blossom which the wind sails, than the great tide that treads the shifting shore, strewing fresh wreckage gathered in the gale. Pity me that the heart is slow to learn what the swift mind beholds at every turn. Pity me that the heart is slow to learn what the swift mind beholds at every turn.
You already knew the answer, didn't you? We both did, but ultimately I wanted to talk instead of doing anything else, and you wanted to listen. Joan Didion said it best already in Why I Write. There you have 3 short, unambiguous words that share a sound, and the sound they share is I. But I digress. I'm pretty sure it's part of the job to pretend this is all about you. This doesn't matter. Barely any of this matters. Nearly everything successful on the social internet is designed to make you stay comfortable within the bounds of cyberspace. You keep tabs on the latest memes and trends. You keep your snap streaks going. You hold your righteous anger close for Twitter takes. You have time for 17 more seconds of audiovisual stimulation. You like it. You promise. You know there's a problem, but there are worse problems. People are dying. You've seen it online, and you are comfortable. You tell yourself you are comfortable. You believe you are comfortable, and it is mostly true. You are lucky. You are one of the 5.3 billion people in the world with access to the internet, a fact you found out about online, and it reminds you over and over and over again. You are so lucky, and you are so empty. A Pythagorean chalice. The internet, meanwhile, is at least just as terrible as it is wonderful. Within the bounds of Web 2.0, you have become a product. Your data, your avatar, bought and sold and thrown back to you as ads. Web 3.0 only promises more separation and individualization, more isolation, and you know you are not the only person who intuitively knows something is wrong here. There is hope, maybe, or the possibility of hope, and as you speak with your friends away from the keyboard and online, you've all become experts at identifying the problems of the internet over and over and over again. You've read the books, watched the YouTube videos, listened to the podcasts. You've become a responsible digital citizen, yelling at the libertarians and kings who have molded this kingdom. You hold your beliefs of a hostile internet to be true. You know it can be and should be better, and you know social media is killing you softly and slowly. So you have all the answers, and you have all the solutions, but you can't bring yourself to delete your Instagram account or to follow and enact your actual holy desires. But you still keep the answer. You whisper it to yourself as you scroll on your phone an hour after you wake up, 2 hours before you fall asleep. The words sound so simple in your mouth. They always sound so simple in your mouth. But the covers are so warm, and the lights are already off, and it's too late anyway, and maybe you'll still read a book after you've finished scrolling. You convince yourself you like this. You convince yourself you're happy enough. But you're still mouthing that same old prayer. It's been years now. Go outside. Go outside. Go outside. I believe in you. Because I have to believe it's possible.